The government is always quick to talk up progress in Afghanistan and has earmarked another $1 billion in aid for the country. But an independent report at Commission tells a different story of a sharp rise in opium poppy cultivation and little, if any, advancement for women in the justice system. When the authors presented their first draft in the federal parliament, wanted findings changed to present a more optimistic picture. But the authors refused and they claim the government then axed its $3.6 million contract. Matthew Carney has this exclusive report.
Oruzgan is one of the poorest and most neglected provinces in Afghanistan. Only about half of 1% of women are literate, and infant mortality is among the worst in the world. Australia's reconstruction and development focus has been in the province of Oruzgan. The government says significant gains have been made.
The people of Afghanistan enjoy greater freedoms today and a better quality of life than in 2001. In that time, life expectancy has increased by 5 years to 48 today.
It's clear that we've made considerable progress in Oruzgan province in terms of security advances. It's also clear that's the case throughout the rest of the country.
But a comprehensive independent report did not come to the same conclusions. It was prepared by the respected NGO, the Liaison Office, after being commissioned by the government's agency, AusAid. The brief was to evaluate Australia's efforts as lead nation in Oruzgan till the end of 2011. While the report noted some gains in health and education, it was also critical.
Uruzgan is an agrarian society, and it was therefore discouraging that there was little progress in strengthening the agriculture sector. Farmers indicated that they felt they had little choice but to turn to opium poppy cultivation, which was evident in the 45% increase in poppy production between 2010 and 2011.
And on the justice system.
Despite the addition of some new justice sector officials, there were no notable improvements in the justice sector. Women had no standing and faced serious violations of their human rights. The legitimacy of the government continues to suffer in the eyes of Uruzgan citizens due to the failure to achieve improvements in the justice and governance sectors.
The report concluded that the Taliban were far from defeated and still controlled about half of the province. It found after interviewing 180 Afghans that the locals had mixed responses to the Australian military.
They believed that the willingness to more directly engage the Taliban had resulted in clear security gains. Others resented the more robust approach that sometimes led to what they felt were unnecessary civilian casualties.
Susan Schmeidel is one of the lead authors of the report. She says when the first draft was presented to AusAid, they rejected some of the findings.
They probably wanted a bit less critical picture or depict the gains made more positively. I mean, we try to depict them how we hear it from the population, and we try to depict them as nuanced as we can. It is not our job as researchers or as for independent to give it a slant.
Ms Schmeidel claims AusAid officials wanted a more critical chapter relating to security to be left out, and several sections, like the ones on justice and agriculture, to be rewritten to match the optimistic claims made by the Australian government.
Maybe the Australians would rather have the story told how they see it rather than how it's independently seen. Because I think in general right now in Afghanistan, as the argument is, I think there's almost a desperation to show the last 10 years weren't a failure. That the country actually won't slide back into civil war.
AusAid denies it tried to change the content of the report and says it was just seeking corrections to inaccuracies.
I reject that allegation that we required them to change and accentuate the positive. We did not. We provided a suggestion in relation to that report, as we do with all reports that are draft that are provided to the agency.
Susan Schmeidel maintains AusAid wanted the tone changed, but she refused to do so. Schmeidel says the Liaison Office has built a reputation in Afghanistan over the last decade, providing independent reports for most nations working there.
Our responsibility as the liaison office, as an Afghan organization, is to the Afghan people. So we have to tell their story because it's basically the voices you don't hear. That's how we see our responsibility. We do not see our responsibility to make the international intervention to look either positive or negative. We just like to tell the story as it is.
2 months ago, AusAid axed its $3.6 million contract with the liaison office, claiming it had nothing to do with the report's analysis.
It was in relation to performance, issues in relation to meeting the requirements of the contract. As I said, they continued to fail to meet deadlines under that contract, and therefore the contract was terminated.
But in Senate estimates on the 31st of May, Liberal Senator Helen Kroger took AusAid to task and demanded that the report be released.
Have you released that report yet?
I think it's due for a release shortly.
I've got the report here which might be able to help you, Mr McDonald, so if we could table the report. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, the report, the version that you have, Senator, is not the sort of final authorised report. We have a process that we go through for approving reports for publication, and that approved report will go on the TLO website when it's finalised.
The report has now been published, but not by AusAid. It's been released on the Liaison Office website. The axing of the contract with the Liaison Office means Australia's role in Afghanistan will not be independently scrutinised. And that comes at a time when Australia has just pledged almost $1 billion in aid to Afghanistan over 4 years. Matthew Carney, Late Line.